Okay, we are live. I'm here with William Ramsey of the William Ramsey Investigates podcast to talk about the Depp versus Amber Heard trial. Welcome, William Ramsey.
Thanks for having me. Great to be with you again, Roberta.
So I just wanted to start this. We just Amber Heard just testified, and I wanted to play a clip. So here we go.
In this case, it will be criminal as well because I cannot go on Friday and file without filing a police statement first. And the only reason I haven't filed that police statement, which has been used against me, by the way, every day, and the only reason I won't do it, I haven't done it, is because I don't want to hurt you, and that means it goes out of my hands. And we had a third-party prosecutor come, and a criminal lawyer come, and they went, like, the problem is, hearing from you, like, your biggest struggle is that it's the most solid evidence case of domestic violence I've ever seen, and if you give this over to them or present any part of it, they will prosecute him. And I felt like I would never want that for you. It's hard for me to even understand. I don't call myself, like, in my head, it's hard for me to even accept any sort of victimdom ever.
Can you please explain what the context of this was?
I was begging Johnny to not make me prove what I've had to sit on the stand in front of all of you and prove and talk about. I was begging not to do this and have to sit where I'm sitting today. I didn't want this. I don't want to be here. I didn't want to be there then. And I was trying to point out something to somebody who I thought did not have a firm grasp on reality.
Objection calls for speculation.
Overruled. Good. Thank you. I was trying to point out how absurd it would be for him to keep making me prove this by calling me a liar. I was trying to get him to not call me a liar because everything that I had said to date and everything I've said to date now is the truth. And I was begging him not to make me prove it, that there were photos, that there were witnesses, that there was my testimony. There were years of me with injuries on the dates where we were fighting, and they were documented. I mean, pictures from 2012. So I was trying to say to him, either you'd suppose that people would rather believe this is a hoax, elaborate, well-orchestrated, year-long campaign for what? Or that, what? It just seemed crazy. And I thought no one was advising him in his best interest. I thought no one was telling him the truth. I know he's surrounded by yes men, and I thought nobody was saying to Johnny, this is crazy, don't do this. And I didn't want to hurt him. I didn't want to hurt him. I loved him so much. That's why I'm explaining to him why I didn't file criminal charges. I didn't file a police report, even though it was being used against me. I didn't want this to go to a prosecutor. I didn't want this to hurt Johnny. I don't want this to hurt Johnny.
Michelle, can you bring up Depp Exhibit 357D as in David? And that is 17:25 to 17:37. I'm going to move the admission, Your Honor.
All right. Any objection?
No objection.
All right. In evidence, 357D.
I've been called a liar.
Baby.
And I've been called a
Baby.
gold digger.
Baby.
Everyone is.
Baby. Amber, I didn't call you those things. I didn't call you those things.
Baby.
I'm going to go on now to, can we go to Plaintiff's Exhibit 357E? And this is 21:47 to 22:37. I'm going to move the admission, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
357E. Thank you.
And you're stronger. And so when I say that I thought you would kill me, that doesn't mean you counter with you also, that you lost your own finger. I am not trying to attack you here. I'm just trying to point out the fact of why I said call 911. Because you had your hands on me after putting the phone in my face, and I just got crazy in the past, and I truly thought I need to stop this madness before I get hurt.
Oh my God.
And I never think about myself that way. I never defend myself that way. I never see myself as a victim. It's fault, you know?
Alright, yeah.
And I, when they came, I did not cooperate with them. It has been used against me, not by the media, by your side.
And what are you referring to there?
That I don't want to call myself a victim. I don't like to think of myself as a victim, and I don't want him to think I'm attacking him or blaming him. I'm pointing out I didn't cooperate with the police, that I didn't want to get him in trouble, that I didn't want to hurt him. I don't want anything from him. Just don't call me a liar. It's all I said. Just don't call me a liar. Just don't say this isn't real. Because I'm the walking proof of it.
I'm going to ask to bring up Plaintiff's Exhibit, Depp Exhibit 357F as in Frank, 24:04 to 24:48, and move the admission.
All right, any objection?
No objection.
All right, 357F.
I have said only this from the very beginning. I only have my integrity. And the unfortunate thing is
What about mine?
taking it a step further.
What about mine?
They keep taking, that's what it keeps, I'm trying to say to you, literally in words. I'm out of my mouth, that's what I'm trying to say to you. Every step of the way, I have said to them, the thing is, they're hurting Johnny by this, because every time that they call me a liar, or they say this is not true, or Steven says this text message did not actually happen, or that of your security guard, which by the way was a follow-up to your security guard thing they never saw abuse happening. The same security guard who, by the way, have said to me multiple times that I was going to get killed.
And what are you talking about there, Amber?
That even though Johnny told me that his guards would say whatever he needed them to say, that they were the same guards who had told me that I would lose my life
Objection, Your
this
Honor.
way.
Hearsay.
All right, sustained objection.
It came in through the tape, so that's all right. We're fine. Let's go, Michelle.
Your
let's
Honor.
go to
Yeah, if we could approach, please.
I'm sorry.
All right. So, what's your reaction to that?
I think Depp's going to lose.
It's been, you know what I feel like I'm watching a trial. I've sat through many trials. He looks like the losing side to me. And I'm talking to my friends and they're all saying, what's wrong with you? Everybody, all these YouTube lawyers, they're saying that he's definitely going to win this case. He's got it in the bag. The jury's in love with him. It's a fool's game to predict how juries are going to swing. But if I'm including myself as a juror, what he's put on the stand, he was a terrible witness. And I really wanted to play that longer clip to give you an idea of the kind of intense emotion she brought to the stand. You can call it acting. I'm sure Depp's fans will call that acting. But she consistently goes back to, this is the truth. All I have is the truth. This is what I lived through. And then you have Depp up there doing his little trailing off, doing his little acting stories, going off, being impeached 5,000 times already. And all these witnesses, all her witnesses have been incredibly consistent with her story. What he has is a bunch of witnesses who didn't see anything. Friends of his on his payroll who didn't see anything. So, at best you could say, I thought that was also a really interesting clip because she brings up this idea of a conspiracy. So what we're supposed to believe is that Amber Heard thought it would benefit her career so much that she tortured Johnny Depp in a relationship mentally and physically while he did nothing, even though, and let's talk about his past relationships in a second, that so much that that she went out and said that he beat her up, that she reversed it. I mean, and wrote a article where she never mentions him. And then as she's testifying to things, she'll say, I didn't tell him to, like she talked about this, Johnny Depp raping her with a bottle, which was left out under seal in the UK case. And she's saying, I didn't tell him to stop. Wouldn't it benefit her to say, I told him to stop and he kept going, if she's adding things or making it up or wanting to play victim? I mean, I feel like America is in like a mass case of Stockholm syndrome with Johnny Depp's PR team. I don't think
they might be. You know? They might be. Yeah, it might be. It might be the same PR team as his buddy Damien, right? So, but I think I think the core claim is that she was lying when he said she survived domestic abuse. And I think that the evidence has shown so far in court that she was very much abused. Yeah. Whether she punched him or not, or how, some of this verbal stuff, psychological stuff she did. I've listened to some of her stuff. Doesn't make her look great. But the fundamental thing that he's suing her for is that's defamation. I think that it's a truth that will stand. And it'll be the same result as what happened in the UK, which he tried to, or his attorneys tried to bring up on appeal, and it was sealed. So, and he was called a wife beater, and I think it wasn't her. She was involved in the test. The information from their relationship was brought in, but he sued
the Sun,
the Daily Sun. Thank you,
Sun, I believe. So it came up a couple days ago in the testimony of I.O. Tillett Wright, who testified that Johnny Depp was really mean about Amber Heard, and we can talk about that in a second, but really mean about his fans. And this is a trial where people are lining up the day before, the afternoon before, to get into the next morning's trial. They've flown from around the country to support him. And he refers to them as remoras, a sucker fish that feeds off the bottoms of ships and sinks them. Damien Eccles, his paroled triple child killer friend that he called his brother, meaning spiritual brother, called his Twitter followers I'm not even sure how
Chupacabras, yeah.
Thank you, which is a mythical goat creature that is vampirish and sucks the blood out of goats. Very similar. Someone had suggested in the comments that we're sort of like jumping to a conclusion because we didn't like Johnny Depp's support of Damien Eccles. That of course we're going to. I hate to say I'm supporting Amber Heard because I really think that simplifies things. It's not personal. So yeah. It's not personal.
I don't have any personal. I think they're both awful. So I'm not taking sides. I don't know. Amber Heard, from kind of some of the stuff, I think that in my opinion, is she experienced these what happens where relationships start out charming and then the guy changes and turns into a beater. It's like the classic.
It certainly follows a pattern. Yeah, a pattern of he really lays it on thick, showers them with gifts, which is the way abusive relationships start. They're everything, and then then it goes into demoralization and discarding. It's so interesting. But what do you know about Depp's relationship with Damien Eccles? And do you think it's important?
I don't know if it really influences this case, but I think it goes into his character. But I think outside of this case, it's not really, it's not material to this case. But I know his relationship goes way back. He was one of the main financial supporters of the successful attempt to get Eccles out of jail. He was not exonerated. But my understanding is he was one of the main bankrollers with Peter Jackson, who was the film director, and paying for the appellate court guy. What was his name? He worked for Bobby Bonds or Barry Bonds. Anyway, he paid for that. This substantial amount of money. It was in 7 figures.
So do you think do you think Johnny Depp regrets giving those millions to free those guilty child killers now? I'm sure he doesn't look at it like that. I mean,
he's never said anything to my knowledge about repenting. He was I mean, when they had I think it was within the last 2 or 3 years when they were back in Arkansas, he joined Damien Echols and Berlinger in this whole stunt to kind of so-called reopen the case. Do you remember that? I mean, it wasn't the most recent one this year. It was another stunt like 2 or 3 years ago. Do you remember that?
It's hard to keep track. It's really hard to keep track. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but it's just interesting because my friend was saying to me, you know, you're seeing this trial so differently. And I said, you're forgetting that I've sat through Making a Murderer, all the people making videos about Stephen Avery's innocence, Adnan Syed.
Wow. Yeah.
Where are all these people now? Like, I think that in probably 5 or 10 years, it's not going to help Amber Heard much. I think tremendous damage has been done to her reputation and her marketability. But where are these people going to be now that they've gotten their few shekels off of supporting a rapist wife beater? I mean,
I don't know. I think that this trial is a disaster for both of them. I think he thought maybe he could have all these tapes and all this information come out against her. He's playing the abused, like she abused him. I think the evidence shows that something happened, like whether she struck him or hit him or something like that.
Yeah, well, it's also, we saw Dr. Dawn Hughes testify, who's an expert in interpersonal violence that I saw testify in the Nexium trial and in the Larry Ray trial. And she is a bang-up witness, excellent credentials, completely unable to rattle and cross. Johnny Depp fans were upset that she had to occasionally read from her notes. But what she does for a jury is she can't talk about Johnny Depp or Amber Heard in specifics, but she talks about a pattern of behavior. And the jury is going to be connecting those dots. She's a very important witness, I thought a very strong witness that really got kind of negated. So what they will see is how this pattern of a relationship follows what these experts say. Johnny Depp, on the other hand, had this witness who went out to dinner and drinks with him, diagnosed Amber Heard with a personality disorder in a very short period of time. It's just very interesting. You know, Adam Waldman, who's like Depp's Bengali, got thrown out of this case for coercing witnesses, positive testimony from witnesses. Wow. So what do you think's going? I mean, do you think that pattern was set? I mean, who are these people with this kind of coming in for Johnny Depp? They're just very it's like an entourage. I mean, I would say he has an entourage, and he was notorious for his largesse, right? Didn't he have a huge, he's been in a lot of lawsuits. He was in another one with his business partners, and then money, I think, was misused, and it showed that he was keeping like 40 people employed, his sister, and all these other people. So some of these people may not be as objective as people might think. They might have some financial interest in Yeah, I just get the feeling of shenanigans going on behind the scenes. I mean, you have this kind of disgruntled assistant from Amber Heard who struck me as super unpleasant. That was testifying for Johnny Depp, and they keep bringing up his generosity. It's just like his lawyers try to like crowbar that in as often as they can. And I keep thinking to myself, is this about his generosity, or is this about his character being defamed?
Right. Good point. I mean, it goes back to really the central claim. Did was she abused? And it's the abuse is, I mean, to me, the testimony and the evidence shows the abuse was there, you know, all the way to the end. So for him to say that's defamatory, if it's real, it's, you know, you have to have some kind of malice, deliberate malice, which she didn't really have. So There's a lot of he's going to lose. I mean, I put my money. I'd be very surprised if the jury thinks that he was the one that was just the 100% victim. I think that from what I've seen,
it will be interesting to see. And there was also interesting testimony from Amber Heard. She feels that leak, that TMZ leak with the bottles, she's blaming it on Johnny Depp and Adam Waldman. So if you look at that video, it's really not all that negative for Johnny Depp. So meaning to make it look like she leaked that first, and then Johnny Depp could counter leak all the edited audio clips that he could leak. Do you know what I mean? Do you know the where he's pouring the glass of the wine and he's smashing the cabinets, that video?
That video, I'm very familiar with that video.
And I thought that makes more sense, because not only does she apologize for herself constantly, which I've seen a lot of victims do on the stand. Right. I know this sounds stupid. Right. Yeah, right. I know it sounds stupid, but I felt beautiful in this dress. And then Johnny told me I look like a whore. Or, I mean, he has like 3 words for women, and they're all like cunt, whore, saggy, old, whatever. Really has an issue with women. I mean, it's so obvious to me, and I think anyone else watching. And she's apologizing for that. And so it just seems very consistent. That's what I'm saying. Just very, 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 very consistent.
He's in,
but it's also a pattern of protecting him too. And then when you read the UK ruling, were you as skeptical as I was? I was thinking, well, of course Amber Heard's sister is going to testify positively for her. Of course this person is going to testify for her that's connected to her. I'm just having quite a different feeling actually watching this testimony, because these people, like Johnny Depp, made sure that these people fell in love with him. And we saw this testimony, I thought, which was really interesting, which has been totally ignored, the testimony of Io Tillett-Wright, who was Amber Heard. She's a trans-identified woman. So, and Tillett gave testimony. Like, when I met Johnny Depp, I just had this feeling like we were soulmates. That's what a charismatic actor can do, just make you fall in love with them. And I didn't say anything. And then the next meeting, Johnny Depp came up to me and he said, I know this sounds strange, but I think I love you. And Tillett said, oh, that's funny, because I had the same feeling. And then the next thing Johnny Depp wanted to talk to Tillett about was Amber Heard and her feelings. And Tillett-Wright had to be like, look, I'm now friends with you both, sort of, and I do not want to get in the middle of it. I'm happy to be friends with you both, but I just thought that was so predatory. It just seemed like calculated. Like, I'm just going to make this person feel like they're my soulmate so I can have an in to manipulating Amber. And the other thing he did was, we heard about this Dr. Kipper. So he helped Johnny Depp get off drugs in a Hollywood way by giving him a whole lot of other drugs. But he also had a full-time nurse with Johnny Depp and a full-time nurse with Amber Heard.
Yeah. Do you feel
what is he doing? Drugging her to keep her so she doesn't react to to the situation around her? He's keeping her in like a fog. Her sister testified she thought it was very strange. Also, Johnny Depp's former best friend said he thought Dr. Kipper was a ripoff, and it was very strange. Why would Amber Heard? Actually, it was Amber Heard's sister who testified. Why would she need a doctor? But he just thought it was a ripoff and totally odd. So he's trying to medicate her into be under his control.
It's not surprising to me at all. I mean, I've done a recent show about him and just how he always was very involved in dark subjects in his shows, and he has an interesting background that they're not going into this part. I guess they're sealed off. Kind of his penchant for occultism is probably a good way to put it. But
well, definitely, death has come up like a billion times. And what do you think the significance of his interest in the occult is? in this trial?
Well, I think that it would go into kind of his mindset and his personality. Like it's not fashionable to bring in that kind of ideology. Oftentimes it will. It's like if somebody has a transformation or finds Jesus or something, they'll put it in the trial. But I think that it would be curious, but it's just not. It's really kind of just a non-fashionable thing to talk about. People get mocked or you get called a satanic panic type. But I think that would go to his character, because I think that that's really what that might be a reflection of his personality, is his tastes and all the films that he's done and the people that he's associated with. Polanski, another serial abuser. I mean, I think my understanding is there's been additional claims of what he did in the States and ran from the States in France, is my understanding. So I'm surprised they didn't talk about his relationship with Marilyn Manson. You and I have talked about that. Mm-hmm. And I just posted a lot of our old interviews going back to 2018 on William Ramsey Investigates. So if people want to hear all of these subjects that we've talked about, I put up 17 of the older ones. Like I didn't put up the ones within the last 6 months, but there was a lot of subjects we've got. A lot of these abuse kind of issues, I think we talked about. Definitely Manson v. Wood. So, but I think that it's interesting that they're staying away from that, because I do think it's important. When you support somebody who pled guilty to killing 3 kids, I think that says a lot. Financially support somebody who's guilty currently.
And then take him around the world and get tattoos with him. There has to be a thought that maybe he did torture and kill 3 kids. I mean, there has to be a thought that you could be wrong, that he could not be. Or do you think these people are so narcissistic that they don't see it like that?
My own opinion is that he's a fellow traveler with Eccles. That's why there was that celebrity support. And with you have the same tattoos you don't trip and get a tattoo with the Theban alphabet on your chest. Like, oh, you want to put that tattoo with the sigil on my chest with the Theban alphabet surrounding it? Great.
What is the Theban alphabet? I don't even know.
It's like a magical alphabet, right? So the Thebes, like back in the old, classical Greece, there were all of those Sparta, Athens. These were all kind of city-states. Thebes was kind of like known to be like a witch kind of thing. So this Thebe alphabet is kind of a witch's alphabet. It's also known as the witch's alphabet, but the letters translate to the English language. So A will be a symbol, something like that. And so that's what Peter Jackson, Johnny Depp, and Eccles all have that same style. So does Kenneth Anger. This is a whole nother story, but they have all that stuff. And then Eccles got an I Ching with Depp. So there's a picture of them getting a tattoo together. So they have a lot of and this is like as Eccles got out of jail in 2011, he just fully tattooed his body right now. But I think it says a lot about his character. I think the jury, trier of fact, would be interested to hear that. But the Heard's lawyers didn't seem to want to bring that up. But yeah.
So what is this kind of PR? Could you look at this PR offensive that Depp's making as some kind of magical practice to make something that's not true or not real?
It might be.
Could that be looked at?
I think that could be a possibility. I mean, I know that Eccles, like I was talking about this in an interview yesterday, he attributed him getting out of jail. It wasn't that the law and the evidence were on his side. I think he said magic, right? So
That's
Magick. Right. And during this travel, this world tour, Depp went on a lot of stops with Eccles on his book. I think one was in New York where he was promoting Life After Death. Depp said something very interesting, which is let the magic flow. So you got to keep the magic flowing. So he's using that magic, like he knows that term, in my opinion. Like when he's saying that to Eccles, and Eccles like, yeah, you got to let the magic flow. So that shows it's an indicator that he has that supernatural, magical worldview. Depp does, in my opinion. And you can see it through all his movies and stuff like that. So, but I think it goes to his character. So you're right. I mean, this convincing PR. Look at how successful Eccles is PR. Most people think West Memphis 3 were found innocent and exonerated for a crime they didn't commit. These axioms that are repeated ad nauseum. They think if you think they're guilty, which they actually are guilty at law, that you're crazy. So,
yeah, that's right. I'm used to it. And
yeah,
I think it's more interesting who's not talking. And I know Alan Barkins, but let's look at some of his. For one, Winona Ryder, they leaked her. She hired a lawyer. Let me just show this real quick. This is her talking about her relationship. Johnny Depp started dating her when he was, I believe, close to 30. She was 17, maybe younger. And I'm just talking about what the jury's going to be looking for is patterns of behavior, and if they all are congruent. And you see that. And here we have Kate Moss. I'll read it for those who are. Kate was often on a razor's edge with Johnny. She was afraid of his rages. The young woman was at the time totally in his grip and did everything that he asked her. So, I mean, he's really into power and control. And Ellen Barkin is also going to testify in this trial, I believe. There's always an air of violence around Johnny Depp. But, what Dr. Dawn Hughes talked about was reactive violence. And are people expecting Amber Heard to was the way that she was expected to react to just take it? And if that makes her an abuser, I'd like to just remind people of another really famous man abuser.
Hey, come on, Ike. Oh, man, what you doing? Trying to get some sleep. Yeah, with that chocolate bar, don't get on your suit. Hey, come on, man. I'm trying to get. Where you going? Hey, what's wrong? Hey, Ann, you better come back over here so I can get some sleep now.
Go straight to hell, Ike.
Hey, Ann, where you going? Come on now, get in the car now. Talking about taxi. Look, you ain't going shopping. You want to go shopping? I had a man take you shopping. Woman, I tell you, get your ass in this car. I ain't playing with you, man.
Hey, call me when you're ready to go to sound check.
Yeah, don't worry about it now. Make sure everybody be there when it's supposed to be.
All right.
Okay, so maybe is the next big Twitter campaign Tina Turner for prison? Tina Turner.
Probably.
I mean, do you think this is useful to put this trial in the context of a Me Too movement? And I'm seeing repeated believe all women. I mean, is that useful? I mean, in this, I don't know.
It's a good question. It's a really good question. I think that it's part of the Me Too movement, but I think you have to kind of take it off as this is actually a trial. This isn't a public. This was based on a public statement she made, but this is going into court to prove stuff. So if you believe the testimony of all these people, I think that it's this specific case shows abuse, and it may not be all one way, but I think if the basic statement that she made that statement, I mean, if you look at the standard for defamation, actual malice, she didn't even mention his name. She just said to abuse. The abuse is there, so I think he's not gonna.
And the other thing that Tillett Wright testified to was that Johnny Depp would talk about Amber Heard. She's going to have nothing. She has no talent. When her tits start to sag, she's going to be all washed up. And I thought, isn't that the ultimate projection? Here's Johnny Depp on the tail end of being a sex symbol. I know his stans would argue that he still is, but maybe he still is, but not in the way he was in 21 Jump Street in the early years, even 2013, back in 2013. And he's looking forward, and the kind of women less women are interested in him. He still has enough money to, or I don't know what he has now, but that sort of projection, and he just to make her feel really small. You have nothing. I have all the talent. I have this. All she has is her looks. I mean, do you think that's his ultimate? I mean, insecurity about his own talent and his own self?
Yeah, I would say so. I think so. I think his treatment of women reflects, in my opinion, his insecurity, like all that stuff and all the weird, creepy behavior that he gets into, the belittling, power dynamics, all that stuff. To me, yeah. I mean, I've heard people send me stuff, but
Can I just play one more short clip before I just want to get this in, because I really want people to see how Johnny Depp handled Cross. Here.
Johnny Depp is back on the stand today, facing withering cross-examination about embarrassing texts he wrote about Amber Heard.
I will her burnt corpse afterwards to make sure she is dead. That's what you said that you would do after you burned her and after you drowned her. Did I read that right?
You certainly did, yes.
And you wrote that about the woman who would later become your wife?
Yes, I did.
Depp also sent his bodyguard this text.
On January 17th, 2013, you texted, "I'll smack the ugly around before I let her in." Apologies again to the court and the jury for this language. And then you closed by saying, "Did that worthless hooker arrive?" Did I read that right?
You did, sir.
And you think that you live up to the standards of a Southern gentleman?
That was essentially, yes, raised to be a Southern gentleman. That is to say, when chivalry was still alive and allowed.
These text messages are graphic and really abhorrent in language. They're also on the big screens throughout the courtroom. The jury is leaning in. Some put on their glasses so they can see and read along with the defense attorney. And there are some really looks of disgust.
Depp's friendship with famous pals like Marilyn Manson came up in testimony.
One of your good friends that you've taken drugs with before is Marilyn Manson, right?
Yes, we've taken, we've drank together. We've had cocaine together maybe a couple of times. I once gave Marilyn Manson a pill so that he would stop talking so much.
A photo taken at Depp's house in 2013 was introduced in court that appears to show lines of cocaine and a large glass of whiskey. The photo was snapped at 8:30 a.m. Depp tried to crack a joke about it.
You would sometimes drink whiskey in the mornings too, right?
Isn't happy hour anytime?
That cocaine, those white lines, those are cocaine. That's cocaine, right?
I would assume.
Yeah, and that's your cocaine that you kept in that box that says "property of JD" with the skull and crossbones, isn't it?
The box was a gift from someone. I can't say that I carried cocaine in it, no.
You can't say that you carried cocaine in that box?
No, but it looks like it would fit some cocaine.
He also made light of his wild past.
You've trashed hotel rooms before simply because you've had a bad couple days and an unpleasant time, correct?
I have assaulted a couch or two, yes, sir.
Okay. So, I mean, what is your feeling looking at that?
I think that he's making light of probably pretty serious allegations as to his character. I think so. Like, he's trying to charm it off. I think we talked about that in the past. Like, he's trying to use his charm to get out of that. What do you think about his testimony? Also, I want to ask you two questions. What do you think about his testimony? And looking at if you've watched a lot of this trial, who would you think has the most veracity? It's not just him and her, but of all the evidence and all the statements that have been made at trial, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think these people are deflecting or lying, or do you think
there are moments in very significant moments in a few of Amber Heard's witnesses that I think that they are obscuring the truth out of privacy? Like, there is her ex-best friend testified, and they said, and she was asked, "Why are you no longer on speaking terms with Amber Heard?" She said, well, she testified, "We aren't enemies." And she said, "I reprioritize the people in my life and the friendships in my life." So that's not a direct quote, but that'll give you the idea. And I thought something had to happen. You're not best friends with someone 1 minute and not. And is it a significant omission? No. Whereas Johnny Depp's witnesses, I mean, are just don't pack any punch. I mean, what Amber Heard has done with her witnesses is created a pattern of behavior, and her behavior too, her reactive behavior, how she reacts, who she is. You get a full picture of who she is, how she reacts, and who Johnny Depp is, which is very jealous, very violent, and really has gone into extreme. You mentioned Elvis last time we talked, and I didn't really take that in enough. I mean, it's really like he's in like late Elvis even with a punch, like late Elvis year territory. And that can't be easy for a man. And I when I look at him, I think of what my dad used to tell me, which is, this was his saying, which was, charm is the enemy of character. And be very careful of people who are really charming. I think I would love Johnny Depp. I like his acting. It's not, I really have to just show you this really quickly. This Amber Heard supporter showed up among a sea of Johnny Depp fans. I just want to show you real quick. Do you see that?
I saw that on Twitter. I saw that on Twitter.
I love this guy. I relate to his plight. But I mean, it's personal for him about Amber. I don't know Amber Heard. No one deserves the treatment that she was given in this relationship, and no one deserves. I mean, this kind of, it reminds me of like a Scientology style campaign assault on her, where he gets a ton of flying. The whole world, including Fox News, who was cutting. I couldn't find. That was the best I could find of his cross, of a short clip of his cross. I mean, I did not look for hours and hours. I had to limit it, but her cross-examination is cut up all over the internet. I mean, like, it's just, I mean, these witnesses who are no longer friends with Johnny Depp loved him, including Amber Heard. And you can still feel their love for him come out on the stand. And that is what I was not expecting. And this is not some kind of revenge. It's just so absurd. The whole thing is so, I feel so badly for her that he's not sober enough to see this. Right. This is his suit.
He brought the suit. It's his suit. So you can't say it's vengeance. If she mentions he's abused without mentioning his name too, that's not vindictive. She's saying what she experienced from her position, what she believes she experienced, what I believe she experienced. And her punching him back and things like that, not positive, her belittling him and laughing at him like the Joker or whatever, not great form. But doesn't matter to the core of the case. Was she abused? Was she making a statement that was deceptive with actual malice? So I keep going back to that. I think the proof is shown that he was an abuser. Don't you think?
Yeah.
So if the jury is sober and listening, there's only one outcome.
That's what I think. I don't know who these jurors are, and Adam Waldman and Johnny Depp's team seems to be playing very dirty. So I don't know. I'm not in my more conspiratorial moments. I thought, have they gotten to a juror? I mean, this is ridiculous to be that this is being broadcast. Absolutely.
Terrible.
This judge is awful. Absolutely. I mean, so Johnny Depp has this really aggressive lawyer. I just want to show you the last clip, I promise. Very short.
Take your time.
Camille Vasquez. And she's very aggressive with her objections. Let me just find this. And people are saying, oh, this is great lawyering, which is kind of what I used to do when I used to watch trials. Like I used to watch people like Leslie Aberson, who was actually I think a lot smarter than Camille Vasquez, be very aggressive and think that that's great lawyering. But she is interrupting and really being obstructive to a lot of this testimony, and she's calling hearsay claims on things that are not being given for the truth of the matter, which is usually how you can kind of let in testimony to tell your side of the story. Otherwise, everything is all disjointed and the jury has no context or doesn't know what's going on. So here's some of the great Heard versus Camille Vasquez.
Johnny grabbed me while holding me down, and I remember him asking me if I thought I was so tough. He asked me 3-4 times up close to my face, "You're so tough. Are you such a tough guy, huh? You think you're so tough. What are you going to do now?" I stood up at some point after getting off the ground. Do you see that?
That is correct.
And then you right after. I remember crying. I remember feeling exhausted and frustrated. And it hit me, meaning the realization of how sad it was that I was going to wake up tomorrow on my birthday without him.
That's correct.
Okay. Where in this interrogatory response, Ms. Heard, you describe Mr. Depp, quote, grabbing you by the pubic area and pushing you down?
On page 64.
Where?
Page 64, 1, 2, 3 paragraphs down. Johnny grabbed me once, did this taunting thing on the side of the bed in penthouse 3. He grabbed my vagina and held me there. Asked me if I was so tough.
So that's some examples of her. I mean, this is, how much do you think he's paying for his legal team?
Millions. He's paying a lot. He's got a really legit lawyer, the Rotter Barn or whatever. So
that's Amber Heard's lawyer.
That's a legit lawyer too.
Yeah,
they're both
he's
paying
great.
a lot. Who's his main lawyer? It's not this girl, Camille. Right?
I forget it's like a Chu is his last name? Is that right?
Yeah, these trials are expensive. They're paying to go to finance this whole trial.
And
we're not even talking about what leading up to the trial. So they're spending real money. It's probably $10 million, $5-10 million maybe.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Yeah.
That's okay.
Right before this we started this live feed, his agent of 30 years was testifying that Johnny Depp was in such financial straits that he came to her office and demanded that, I think it was CAA, Creative Artists Agency, give him a $20 million loan because he brought so much business in. And she just said that he used to be the biggest star in the world and he's kind of washed up. And she goes, before all these lawsuits, she thinks, I mean, it was very interesting to hear her testimony was that she thinks these lawsuits are actually hurting him. And it's interesting. Well, I mean, it's kind of interesting because it looks like he's created enough PR and enough hubbub that enough people love him. The courtroom is like packed, and he's created a flying monkey out of freaking Fox News Live, has made 1 million clips about Amber Heard's abuse on the stand and all this stuff. I mean, if that's not a successful PR campaign, I don't know what is. I mean, wouldn't you think if you're smoking pot on the way to court, and you're probably looks high as hell on pills and other things in the courtroom, drawing on his coloring books in this? Don't you think he has the illusion that he's winning?
He might be in a completely delusional world. I mean, I don't know. It's something like the calculations aren't making sense. If you look at outside of this trial, like having your business guys take your money, having a huge entourage, really not having a real nice opinion of your fans, this would be making the bad decision to go to trial over this and continue and spend that money, I think, would be consistent with these other curious decisions that he's made even outside of this case. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's like a temper. Like, I don't care if it hurts me. I just want to win. I just want to hurt. And Amber Heard really knew how to needle him. We heard some testimony, some tape played of her saying, oh, yeah, you never sold out. Because he didn't ever want her to play up her dress sexy, which I don't know how you can be a Hollywood actress and not play up that in this society. But okay. He didn't want her to, we don't have like a young equivalent of a young Meryl Streep or something in our society right now. If you're the role for you when you're young and freakishly beautiful, like Amber Heard is to play the ingenue. And he chose to marry that person. Anyway, she was just teasing him about 21 Jump Street and how he never sold out and how he was never a sex symbol. And she's very good on the stand. She's basically unrattable.
Unrattable.
Yeah, thank you. You just can't. She said, yeah, I said a lot of hurtful, horrible things, but I just was not expecting Johnny Depp could make you just fall in love with him. He's very charming. These witnesses, Amber Heard witnesses, or in some ways, some of their testimony, reflects positively on Johnny Depp in that they still have a lot of love for him despite all his weaknesses and problems and anger and violence issues. So I think it's more interesting, nobody from Hollywood is coming to be like, oh no, Johnny Depp. Right. That I've seen.
Nobody's coming to say he's an outstanding. He's always at work on time. Right. We're always done shooting with him because he's such a professional. And wow, what a great asset. And we made money on this movie. The word on the street is like he didn't even study his lines in the last Pirates of the Caribbean. He had an earpiece, and somebody would speak his lines to him, and then he'd speak them. Like
which is what Marlon Brando did. Also, Marlon Brando also had an island. And I just think it's very interesting. Johnny Depp is such an empty human being. Like, there's just no real personality. You just like, I'll take Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando could show up and demand millions of dollars for a role and have an earpiece, and I'll have an earpiece. Marlon Brando could have an island. I'll have an island. Hunter S. Thompson could do cocaine at 8:30 in the morning and drink. I can do that. It's just like all the way he makes a character. I said this before, is just the way he's built the kid. He's just the most empty, soulless human being. And boy, does he hate everybody, not just women, just hate everybody. And
he doesn't like the fans who pay to watch his stuff, which I think is really, you never insult the audience or whatever, ever. I don't care whether you're an actor, artist, whatever. The interesting thing, what do you think? How is this playing out in social media? Because when I go onto Twitter or something, somebody's either taking a side or she's part of the problem. There's some, and these keep propping up, oh, Johnny could never do that. What's your kind of take? Do you think that's being botted or faked on Twitter?
Oh, I think there's a lot of fake bots, definitely. Oh, definitely. But I think it's also attracted a lot of really deluded people. I mean, I grew up, my father was a screenwriter, my godmother's, I grew up with these people. I know, I'm like acutely aware that perception is not always reality. Right. And the personality of performers and creative types. So
they're acting even off
screen, really think
right?
They think they know these people. They have a relationship, and it's an amazing thing that these actors can do is get an intimate relationship, make these people feel that they have an intimate relationship with.
It's called parasocial relationship.
Yeah.
Right. So these people have a parasocial. They think Johnny's great. They've seen all his movies, but these actors act off the screen too. So they're acting in the public forums, right? So even if they're in an interview or something, they're still acting. It's not often their real personality. It's just an acting personality, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, to hate your fans is a different. I mean, I've been with my godmother when fans have come up to her, and I mean, it's just like, I mean, it's like your queen. I mean, can I do this? Can I do? It's just like, I had to hate that. To hate a fawning person who just thinks you're fantastic. I mean,
if you've really convinced, it's fantastic. Yeah.
But are you ready? Are you? What I'm going to ask you though, William Ramsey, are you ready for this to be our most hated episode?
I don't care. Can it get worse than the West Memphis 3?
That's right.
I don't care. The West Memphis 3, everybody thought I was blind. They're already talking smack on the comments on StreamYard. So wait till this goes up in public.
Right. We've been through this before. Let me just show you. This is an emblem of our life on the internet.
No, you sent that great piece out on social media where it was like you standing against the whole herd of people saying, I forgot what the leave in the line was, but
it was you're all wrong.
Like
you're all wrong. Yeah, cartoon.
And you can tell by all of the negative reviews you've got on your iTunes too. Is like they're all people like, oh, the West Memphis 3 is that. That's what I have too. On mine are like, oh, we all know the West Memphis 3 are innocent. Those are my 1-star.
We all know, even though
that and the flat earthers. Yeah, so the West Memphis 3 are innocent, and the flat earthers are against me. So, which should disturb both parties, actually.
What I wasn't expecting is how quickly these campaigns go away. And no one's coming up to me saying, oh, yeah, you were really right back then. I mean, I don't know if I'd even get much satisfaction in saying I told you so. I don't think so. But they all pretend like they weren't a part of it. They weren't making Adnan Syed videos. They weren't making Stephen Avery new evidence videos, all these people, and making money off of it. I just think I think the people that are comfortable supporting Johnny Depp, and I've been really disappointed by some people who've been on my show, supporting Johnny Depp based on edited tapes, minimal research, really, really disappointing. And if, you have to think, if you're willing to support a potential rapist, wife beater to make a few shekels on the internet. I don't know. I think that speaks to your character.
Let me ask you this question. There's kind of an air of threat and violence in their relationship. Did you get that feeling? Like, not just the stated abuse that was in the court, but there was I read kind of like her text messages between her and Elon Musk. And Musk is saying, yeah, I'll get you security for 24/7. Like, why would you need security for 24/7? And why are they using words like kill all the time? Did you get that impression at all?
I'm not sure what your question. Do you mean that Johnny Depp is kind of making her feel afraid for her life?
Yes.
Is that what? Yeah, yes. That was the conclusion in the UK judgment, which I think was very sound. That she was made to feel for her life, fear for her life, rightfully on 3 occasions.
Physical safety, right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think he enjoys this. This Amber Heard got under his skin. And he just wants the last word. And this is his attempt to get the last word and to gain control. And I also think that he's blaming her. He's narcissistic. And I know that's overused. I hate to use that word, but narcissistic in the way that he can't take any personal responsibility. So it can't be his fault that he showed up to work drunk and high and with an earpiece. It's got to be Amber Heard. You know what?
Amber Heard's causing me to do that or something. Yeah.
It's the ultimate Streisand effect, because without Johnny Depp filing all these lawsuits, it would have just who would have known about Amber Heard's op-ed article? Who would have known?
Who reads newspapers? Or who does that?
Right.
Less than 1% of the population. Excellent point. The smart strategy would just be to have ignored that. If you were Depp, like I'm not going to take that personally. I'm just going to go.
He's going to punish her.
The other thing is the NDA stuff, right? So they're clever to get her sister to try to sign the NDA. So it's an insight into a lot of these Hollywood relationships or high-level celebrity public relationships. They know how to get that NDA and you sign off and not talk.
Right. So
I think that's another important element in this whole public fiasco. But he's going to lose. I put my money on it. Yeah,
I think so too. But I hate to predict a jury. I never know with a jury. You just don't. I don't know who they are. I don't know. But he does look. I mean, from my experience of attending trials, watching trials, his side looks like the losing side.
Yeah. You have a lot of experience, big trials. You've done so many: Epstein, Maxwell, the other ones,
Larry Ray
Nexium.
trial, Nexium,
Larry
all
Ray.
the hearing. Yeah. So and her testimony reminds me a lot of Larry Ray, and he's starting to remind me of Keith Raniere. Just the same soft voice, the same manipulation, the same charm, and the absolute desire to control everything, especially even in the courtroom. He's there writing notes to his legal team. But just back to this Camille Vasquez, I do not see how the jury can like her interrupting constantly, aggressively interrupting and being super aggressive with Amber Heard. I don't either. When you're in the courtroom, it's very different when you're watching it on a screen when you have a little distance. But when you're in the courtroom and you get those kind of really aggressive, overly aggressive cross, and I believe that they come from the client. The client directs their lawyer to be extra aggressive.
I think so. They get the lawyer they want, the style,
right? Style they want, and it feels like you're being beaten over the head, and that constant stopping and starting and unnecessary objections. They can handle some objections are expected, but a hearsay objection every minute was in the last half of the redirect, I believe, Amber Heard's redirect. It was so punitory and unnecessary. I really, and you saw her, Camille Vasquez, leaving the trial. I mean, this reminds me, do you think that this is a bigger trial than the OJ Simpson trial?
It's in there in one of the top trials. I would say OJ's a little bit bigger, but this is all over the news and social media and people taking sides. So people are invested for sure in this. I think there'll be a lot of these people, parasocial followers of Johnny Depp, will be very disappointed when it's over because a sober look at everything.
But my memory of the OJ Simpson trial was that there weren't these kind of OJ Simpson stands like he's innocent. I mean, I'm sure there were a few, but I don't remember that sort of the whole country rallying around OJ Simpson.
But it became, what was interesting about the OJ phenomenon is it became a larger issue outside of whether he killed those two people, Goldman and whatever Brown. It became kind of like a kind of insight into the society, American society. So then and I think the lawyers cleverly tried to make it about race and class and things like that. So I think that maybe this case is coming like that too. It's about celebrity and whose side are you on? Are you a misogynist and I think these when these trials are put out on TV, they morph into something else. And infotainment too. Infotainment, which is also like, oh, he got her today. Oh, Depp came back with a good riposte. Oh yeah, this was a great, counterpoint. And it takes away from what inside of a court should be as a very staid, sober.
It's amazing. It just feels like everything when you're watching a trial, it's like everything is kind of like, it's like a film kind of lifted on reality. And you can I feel like I see everything very clearly when I watch a trial. It's the oddest phenomenon. And this is certainly, quite the opposite. Just absolute nonstop PR playing around the clock. You have to check your phone. You have to, everything is like just reduced to the elements. And I feel like when you're in court and you hear a testimony that's true, it's like everybody in the room hears it. It's a similar phenomenon to some other things that I'm not going to get into. But, you just like hear the truth. It's like that everybody sort of can hear it. And these kind of aggressive cross-examinations I saw in the Nexium trial, unsuccessful, and in the Larry Ray trial. And
unsuccessful, right? So
very unsuccessul. I don't think they worked.
Well, if the past is precedent, then that means they're not going to work in this trial either, right?
I don't know. You never know.
You never know.
To me, it looks like he's losing. I think these witnesses have been excellent for Amber Heard, really excellent. And Amber Heard herself, I really got my admiration in her strength. I'm not saying I know her personally, but just to that must have been just an emotional trial to give evidence. She said, I don't want to be here. I want him to leave me alone. And there's one part of her testimony. She said, Johnny Depp told her that she would never see his eyes again. Meaning I will only look at you, never look at you again. And that's why he's wearing sunglasses. And her lawyer, Elaine Bredenhoff, asked why she thought that was. And she goes, because he's lying. That's why he can't look at me. I'm here. And I can look at him. It was like a goosebump moment. I'm telling the truth. And that's something you never heard Johnny Depp say on the stand. I'm telling the truth. This is what happened. This is, that absolute surety and when that kind of like passion when it really happened to you, when you're on the stand. Right. I'm not saying that, there's things you do on the stand, like where you don't want to get into things to sort of say, that's not my recollection, or I don't recall it, things like that a few times, but nothing significant. They have done no significant damage to her case, and they really needed to. I mean, what he has to prove is so extreme that she did this with malice, knowing it was not true. It's really hard to prove.
Yeah, so, I don't think they're not going to meet that standard. I'm sorry.
For William Ramsey or myself before we go, besides you hate us, besides we're wrong.
I think this is part of even our whole corpus of the talks that we've had are this distortion of what's happening in legal environments and then the court of public opinion. Don't you think, like, even we go back to Internet Side, West Memphis 3, we've done so many of these cases. Nexium, they weren't sympathetic at all, but some of the ones where they're like innocence fraud, how there's something odd. It's almost like a parasocial legal environment where the public gets things distorted through the media or their perception of the events, where they think that Johnny Depp is, abuse. I think that even if you look at it, if they're abuse, if you could take a graph and say she was 50% abusive and he was 50% abusive, she still made her case. So I don't know where you draw. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, like, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
anybody, I think that clip.
Level. I don't think you can put them on 50-50.
Okay.
So,
well, I would say,
I mean, we can agree to disagree on that.
I'm not even saying, I don't even believe she's 50-50. I'm just using that as
okay. That's true. True. You make your point. That's very loyal.
But I think that clip you showed, the abuse is like fighting back is normal. So the abuser oftentimes wants that to justify their continued abuse sometimes, to keep the abuse going, right? So there's all kinds of weird things. Then they can blame them. Oh, you were involved in the fight too, right?
Yeah. See, maybe we can get Tina Turd going. Let's see if we can get that spreading on the. I mean, seriously, this is absurd. Anybody have any questions? All right. Thank you so much, William Ramsey. Where can people find you?
William Ramsey Investigates. Any place you get your podcast. Spotify. I'm on Spotify now. Spotify, iTunes, wherever. Go back and listen to all our interviews. I think we're at 24, but I put 17 in a row just recently. I was on vacation. So I just put all those, and you can go back and see the ones at the very beginning, because you were teaching me stuff about Anand Syed I didn't know. I've learned a lot about innocence fraud from you. So I recommend people go check that out. And then you can get my books on William Ramsey Investigates. And just busy putting out stuff today. And I put out a good one about Depp and his occultism yesterday. So
cool! I'll check that out. I'm gonna look forward to that.
It's William Ramsey Investigates. You can
check it out. Okay, thank you so much.
All right, great to talk with you again.
Great to talk to you. Have a great week, everybody. Okay.